Hey, and welcome to Charge. It's been a few weeks since we've been able to be together. I hope that you're finding lots of ways to have fun at home. I hope you're keeping up on your schoolwork. And I hope you're doing some things to help your family out too. You know, when you do things to help people, that's one way that we show that we love them, that we care about them. But how do we show that we love God? That's what we're going to look at tonight. There's a man we're going to talk about who wanted to show that he loved God. Well, what did that look like? If you don't have your pencil and paper yet, you might pause the video here for a moment and run get a piece of paper and a pencil. Then when you're back, we'll divide your paper into 6 sections. Kind of draw a line there across the middle and a couple going down. Then I'll be drawing some pictures up here tonight as we go through our Bible story, and you're invited to draw along with me at home. First of all, though, I have a couple of things with me tonight. I brought some presents. Here's the first one. It's in this nice rainbow bag here. It's so big I'm having a little trouble getting it all on camera at the same time. Then I have another gift. It's in this pink bag. If you had to choose just one of those 2 gifts that you could keep for yourself, would you take this one or would you want this one? You really can't tell what's on the inside from just looking at the package, can you? It would be hard to choose and know which one was the better gift. Let's take a look at what we have inside. But first of all, get in mind which one you think you would want to have. Okay, let's look in here first. Let's see. Oh. Here we have a nickel. That's worth 5 cents. That's what was in that first package. Let's look at the second one. Let me get this out of the way. I'm going to dump this in my hand so that you can see what we have. Wow, a whole bunch of quarters there. That looks like maybe $5 worth of quarters. You couldn't tell just from the outside of the package which one was more valuable. But then when I opened it and looked on the inside, you saw that this one was worth quite a bit more than that big, pretty bag. Well, the Bible talks about that it's important what's on the inside of us, what's in our heart. Matthew 22:37 tells us we're to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, and with all of our mind. And that's something that the main character in our story tonight knew. The last time we were in the Old Testament, we talked about a man named King Saul. Samuel, the judge of the Israelite people, had anointed Saul as their king, and Saul had led the people. Sadly, Saul was not always a good king. He'd chosen to do things his own way instead of obeying God. Well, Samuel had to tell Saul the sad news that he was not going to be king forever. There was going to be someone who would rise up and would be the king after him. And that's where we pick up the story tonight. God told Samuel that he was to go and anoint a new king for Israel. This new king wasn't going to take over ruling the land right away, but it was going to be someone that God had set apart, that he had chosen as the next king. So Samuel went to the house of a man named Jesse who lived in Bethlehem, and Jesse, he was told, had a son that was going to become the king. So Samuel met each of Jesse's sons. First of all, there were 7 of the young men that came before Samuel. They were fine-looking men. I'm going to draw 7 circles here to represent the first 7 sons of Jesse that Samuel looked at. And then let's just add some details here to make it fun. We'll add some hair on top of him, maybe give him a beard, add the eyes and the nose and the mouth. Let's do this one a little bit differently. Let's see, maybe we can give him a mustache. Okay, here's the next one. Let's try a beard on this one maybe. You can do yours any way you want to. We're just going to quickly show that there were 7 young men that Samuel looked at that were sons of Jesse. And each time one of these young men came in front of Samuel, he probably thought, oh, maybe this is the one that God has chosen that will be the next king of Israel. He knew where the king was going to come from, whose house he was to go to, so surely he was hopeful. These looked like fine young men, that they could be the next leader of Israel. Well, one by one, though, God said, no, this is not the one that I've chosen. Until finally, Samuel was down to the last one, and he said, no, this isn't the one that God has chosen to be the king over Israel. Do you have any more sons, Jesse? And Jesse said, well, yes, I have one more, but he's still a young man. He's not fully grown, and he's out in the field watching after the sheep. And Samuel said, go get him, send for him. So he was the 8th son of Jesse that was brought before Samuel. So I'm going to make the number 8 to show that he was the 8th one. Then we'll go ahead and add some details to him. Give him some eyes and a nose and a mouth. This one's name was David, and David was the one that God had chosen to be the next leader, the next king of Israel. And so Samuel, whenever he saw that David was the one God had picked out, he did what he had done with Saul. He took some oil and he poured it over David's head. That was called anointing him. And it was just a special sign that this was a man God had set aside that was going to be the next leader of the people of Israel. Well, of course, Saul was still king at this time, and it wasn't going to be right away that he took over. David, besides taking care of the sheep, there was something that he did that was a real talent, a real ability of his. He played the harp and he made music. His name is David. It starts with a D, so I'm going to make the letter D. Make a bigger D around it. And then we're going to put some strings on that to turn it into a harp. Well, Saul was still reigning and he was living in the palace, but Saul had troubles. There were times when he would get to feeling really depressed. He was really down. And he would try to find things that would lift his spirits, that would encourage him. And somebody told King Saul that there was a young man in the country who played the harp and made beautiful music, and he thought that he would be able to soothe King Saul and help his spirits to be lifted and to feel better. So he sent for David, and David came to the palace just as a shepherd boy with a harp. And he played for King Saul. And whenever he would play his music on the harp, King Saul's spirit would be lifted and he would feel so much better. So David even lived at the palace some because he was there helping King Saul in this way to keep him encouraged. The people of Israel had enemies that they were fighting against, and the Philistines had given the Israelite people a lot of trouble. There was a giant among the Philistines who was one of the people in their army, and he was so tall, he was 9 feet tall. I'm going to make a 9 here to represent how tall he was. 9 feet. And you may have heard of him. His name was Goliath. Well, Goliath was taunting, or he was teasing the Israelite soldiers. He was saying, you all are too scared to come fight me. Nobody's going to stand up to me like a man. And David saw what was happening. David wasn't even really a grown man. He wasn't even trained as a soldier. He was still quite young. And he said, though, I'm not going to let this Philistine giant make fun of God's people. I will go out and I will fight him. Well, the king offered him his armor and his shield and weapon to take with him, and David tried it on, but it was much too big and heavy and bulky for him. And he said, no, I'm going out in God's power. God's going to win the battle for me, and I'm not going to even take any of this with me. I'm going to take that 9 and I'm going to turn it into Goliath. So let's give him a beard here. Give him some eyes. Then I'm going to kind of turn this into the side of his body. Make his arm here. Kind of come around on the rest of his top. Give him an arm over here. Then I'll put him some legs down here. There, he doesn't look real tall, but he was. He was a huge giant. David volunteered. He said, I'll go out and fight him. Well, you may know what David took with him. Instead of taking a spear, or instead of taking a sword, he took a slingshot with him, and he picked up 5 stones to take with him with that slingshot. So I'm going to use the number 5 here. I'm going to turn it around and make a backward 5 here beside it. Make the rest of David's face here. Give him some eyes. Put his mouth down here. David said, I'll go out and I'll fight him. And it's going to be in God's power that I'm going to go out and fight this Israelite giant, or the Philistine giant. He was going to do it for the Israelite army. So David did. He took his slingshot and he took the 5 stones and he went out and he met him. And Goliath made fun of David. He said, here you're sending like this little kid out to fight against me, the giant. What do you think's going to happen? Well, David took his slingshot. He put one of those stones in it. He slung it around and he let it fly. And that stone came up and it hit Goliath right in the head. Goliath fell to the ground and he was defeated. The Philistine army, they were frightened when they saw this happen. They thought, he's taken down our giant, our leader. And they were so scared they were in disarray and they started to run away because of what David had done. Well, the Israelite people, they celebrated David like he was a hero because he had gone and he had defeated this Philistine giant that had been taunting them. Whenever King Saul saw that the people were honoring David and that David was so popular and everybody loved David, it made him really jealous. He didn't like it. In fact, Saul got very angry with David. Not that David had done anything wrong. But Saul, he even at times, he tried to kill David. David had to run away. I'm going to give him some running legs here. We'll make the letter N. There's his feet running there. Give him some arms. David would escape from Saul by running whenever he knew that he was in danger. But David never did anything to hurt Saul. Oh, there were times he could have. He could have gotten back at Saul. He could have killed Saul. But David chose to honor Saul because that was who God had anointed to be king of the people. Well, when Saul did die, the people came and found David and they said, we want you now as our king. And so David became the king of the Israelite people. As king, David did things that showed that he loved God. One of the things that we remember David for is that he sang songs. He wrote a lot of songs, and we call them psalms. They're in our Bible, in the book of Psalms. And he would use those as a way to worship God and also to lead others in worshiping God. So we're going to draw David again down here. We'll start with that number 5 again to remind us of the 5 stones that he had. My marker's getting a little bit weak there, but I think you can kind of see what we're doing. And now he's a king, though, so I'm going to add a crown here to his head. Go ahead and put his eyes in there. Open his mouth like he's singing this time. I'm going to put some music notes here beside him. He would also have people that would play instruments, and they would sing praises to God and about how great our God is. Besides making music and worshiping God in that way, David also prayed. He talked to God all the time. I'm going to show him in prayer in this next one here. We'll do that same number 5 to start off. But this time, we'll put his eyes closed like he's in prayer. We'll still give him the crown, though, because he was still the king. Then we'll add kind of some folded hands like he was praying. I'll make an upside down U and separate it like that. We can imagine that's his hands folded in prayer. So some ways that David showed that he loved God. He trusted God whenever he went to fight against Goliath. He believed God, that God was going to protect him, and he had faith in him. David also prayed. He talked to God. Many of his prayers were praising God and telling God how great he is, but he also prayed prayers that we call confession. David did a lot of things that were bad, that were wrong. But when he did, he talked to God about it. He confessed it. He said that he was sorry. He changed the way that he was acting. Another way that David honored God was with songs, with worshiping him in that way. You know, we can do those same things that David did. We can pray. We can honor God through songs. We can honor him most of all by obeying him. I hope that you think about that, ways that we show that we love God and ways that we show that we love our family and people around us. Hope that you're having a great week, and I look forward to seeing you again at church.